light. Shadows creep and crawl with every scream. Hear the echoes call. Synths and guitars in a haunting blend. An 80s vibe where the terror transcends. Shocktoberfest, scream until dawn. In your nightmares, the terror's reborn. Lights flash, monsters take flight. Embrace the darkness, it's a metal night.
Hey everybody, Wildman Wes here, and welcome to day 19 of Shocktoberfest 80s Rewind. We are now to the year 1986. There have been a lot of films out there in the horror genre that didn't quite hit the rated R mark. And those that made it to the PG-13, some are pretty good, some so-so. Today's film, we're going to talk about right now. Today's film is The Gate. This movie is about a young boy having nightmares about the tree in his backyard catching a blaze and falling over. When he wakes up, he realizes the tree fell down during a thunderstorm. And it turns out underneath this tree is a hole and a portal to the gateway to hell. While the landscapers are fixing the whole situation regarding the tree in the backyard, the young boy Glenn and his sister Al are going to be left alone for the weekend while their parents go out of town. And usually in a horror movie, when kids are left unsupervised, what's the older sibling usually do? They throw a big party! A lot of drinking, a lot of dancing, a lot of smoking, a lot of lotas. And while Al is having her party with her friends, Glenn is upstairs with his best friend Terry as they sit around wondering what was going on with the tree out back. Eventually, some odd things start to happen around the house. During the party, Glenn and Terry go downstairs where Al and her friends are having a seance. And some odd behaviors happen where a light bulb breaks and everybody freaks out. Shortly after that, Terry gets a visit from his deceased mother, and while he holds her close, she turns into Glenn's dog, Angus, and he freaks out and throws Angus to the floor, where he unfortunately meets his demise. After Angus's death, Terry introduces Glenn to an album from a metal band known as Sacrifix, who actually used a lot of folklore and lyrics to talk about how to dispel the evil of a portal of hell. Now, unfortunately, while they were making this album and after it was released, they all unfortunately met their demise. While they're trying to decipher the words to use to close this portal, the album gets destroyed. Man, that's some bad luck right there. After that, the demons start running amok on Glenn, Terry, and Al. Terry unfortunately gets sacrificed, and Glenn has to save everyone by doing the incantations towards the big giant demon at the end of the film, and everything goes back to normal. Terry is no longer a possessed monster, he's a human again. Angus comes back to life and he's happy puppy, and Al is just the snot-nosed little brat that she was from the beginning of the film. Everybody lives happily ever after, while a tree sprouts from the ground from where the hole to the portal of hell once was. Now it's time to talk about what I like and what I don't like about this film. I remember watching The Gate one time years ago, and in retrospect coming back, it's a decent movie. I'm not sure if it aged as well as I thought it did, because I've heard so many people talk about The Gate, and I wanted to make sure, especially with an 80s series for Shocktoberfest, that this finally made the list. I do appreciate what they did, especially for the movie being rated PG-13. Now, when you have a movie that is of the horror genre that is not rated R, you don't get to have as many liberties as you would with like a slasher film or a psychological thriller. We're talking about fan service, folks. Yeah, you're not going to get that in a PG-13 movie. Maybe, over-the-top clothing, but you're not going to get much out of that. So, if that's your thing, this movie's not for you. The cast did a fairly decent job for performing in a horror film that is not rated R. We have a young Stephen Dorff playing the character of Glenn. We also have Louis Tripp, Jessica Irwin, Scott Denton, and many, many more. I wanted to do more research on this one, but the fact of the matter is, we still have so many more movies to go. But anyways, they did a very great job for a PG-13 horror film. When I say earlier that it may not have aged well, I think a lot of it has to deal with the dialogue, because there are certain phrases and certain words that people could kind of get away with in films back in the 80s, and nowadays you can't. You can't, and you know what? That's not a bad thing that you can't get away with it, because some of the words, especially Stephen Dorff using a 3-lettered slur against the LGBT community, yeah, that was a hard F. That was a hard F on that word. And even I was just like, whoa, they let a kid say that in this film? I do appreciate the humor that they had in this film, especially when you have a horror film that's not rated R and kids are involved in it. There's going to be some teenage hijinks that happen, especially between the characters of Glenn and Terry. Young boys with early raging hormones, and also appreciation for metal music. And of course, with this concept of metal music, we've talked about this before, folks, especially with movies like Hard Rock Zombies, or even the movie Trick or Treat, about playing music backwards on a record, and you can ruin a record or hear subliminal messages. This has that concept in there as well, and it's definitely one of those social commentary moments that makes the movie charming and funny at the same time. Apart from that, the pacing in this film, fairly decent. They don't really drag on much, because you really do have to get a concept of why the evil is coming forth from this void, as well as how to dispel it. Yes, there are some hiccups in this film that make it almost next to impossible, but at the end of it, everything works out in the end. The special effects are really great too. I do appreciate the monsters that are in this. Some of it is more the practical effects, some of them close to claymation, which I think is kind of interesting, even though I did give some grief to Basket Case a while back about the claymation, stop motion special effects. However, the fact that they had more practical than that, I'm going to let it slide. Okay, let's grade this film. After everything that I've said, though I mentioned some of the dialogue may not have aged well due to given reasons, I would dare say this is still a very good movie. It is very rewatchable. And that being said, I'm going to give The Gate an A-. It is very, very well thought out film, and it's also not just terrifying at times, but also funny. And it's not necessarily intended to be funny at times, but when you have kids involved in, as I've said, a non-rated R horror film, you're bound to have some funny antics. Well, we hope you enjoyed this review on The Gate. If you've seen this movie and you agree with me, leave a thumbs up, and if not, I understand. If there are certain things that you liked that I didn't like, or that you didn't like that I liked, put it in the comment section below. I'm really interested to see what y'all have to say about these films, because I've rarely gotten to talk to a lot of people about movies lately, and it makes me sad. I do so much love having conversations with other film lovers out there. Apart from that, make sure you share on social media, but most importantly, let's push that subscribe button. Let's get our subscriber list up to over 500 by 2026. Until then, I'm Wildman Wes, and we will see you next time for day 20 of Shocktoberfest 80s Rewind. Take care, and as always, stay scared, kiddies.